This is IAQ Radio, Indoor Air Quality Radio, the voice of the indoor air quality industry, with your hosts, Radio Joe Hughes and the Z-Man, Cliff Zlotnick. And now, Radio Joe Hughes.
Good day and welcome to IAQ Radio Plus. This week is episode 640, and we welcome Michelle Blevins. She's the owner and editor of Cleaning and Restoration Magazine, C&R. Looking forward to a great discussion on happenings in the cleaning and restoration world. Before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. They are the reason we can continue doing the show. I also want to announce our new feature and its sponsor, IAQ Radio Afterthoughts Forum. We're going to have a new forum that's going to be called Afterthoughts, and it's sponsored by First On Site. And we're looking forward to launching that today after the show. So join us on the after show Afterthoughts. Our marquee sponsor is Instascope at instascope.co. Our association sponsors are the American Industrial Hygiene Association, AIHA.org, the American Conference of Governmental Industrial Hygienists, ACGIH.org, the Cleaning Industry Research Institute, CIRI Science.org, the Indoor Air Quality Association, IAQA.org, the Restoration Industry Association, restorationindustry.org, the Institute for Inspection, Cleaning, and Restoration Certification, IICRC.org, Healthy Buildings America 2021, HB 2021-America.org. Industry sponsors are AEML Laboratories, AEMLINC.com, Particles Plus, ParticlesPlus.com, Gray Wolf Sensing Solutions, GrayWolfSensing.com, TSI Inc., TSI.com, Sunbelt Rentals, SunbeltRentals.com, April Air, April, AIRE.com, Healthy Indoors Magazine, HealthyIndoors.com.
And now you can win a cool prize. It's time for the IAQ Radio Trivia question. Be the first to correctly answer. Simply email your answer to czlotnick@cs.com. Or if listening live, just text your answer from your computer. And now, here's the Z-Man.
Hello, everyone. Congratulations go out to Reedy Ward in Pinehurst, North Carolina, who was first to identify blower door as a device consisting of three components used to measure the air tightness of buildings, airflow between building zones, duct air tightness, and to physically locate air leakage sites in the building envelope. The IQ Radio Trivia question for today, October 1, 2021, has been sponsored by TSI Inc., an industry leader in precision instrumentation for the monitoring of indoor air. Learn how to expand your IQ investigations at TSI.com. Here's today's IQ Radio Trivia question. Name the highly respected journalist and publisher who is credited with helping advance the flooring industry. He published National Floor Trends, Floor Covering Installer, and ICS Cleaning Specialist. Back to you, Joe.
Michelle Blevins is a content creator, marketing consultant, and entrepreneur whose career has been centered on education and fostering relationships within the industries she serves. A journalist by trade, Michelle is passionate about running a publication rooted in integrity and valuable education. She views her role as owner and publisher of C&R Magazine as a bridge between industry experts and the restoration and cleaning contractors. Welcome back to the show, Michelle.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. I appreciate the invite.
Good to have you. It's kind of interesting. A lot of things changing in the restoration world. Let's start a little bit about the purchase of C&R. As I understand it, you bought this magazine and I guess all the associated past articles, etc.
I did. Yes, that is true. I was fortunate enough to work with, some people that I am close with in the RIA, and we talked it through. And, I really felt like this industry loves print and loves having a print magazine, and there's space for print and space for digital. So my dream with it was to create a full media brand for the industry. So it has the digital aspect, it has the print aspect. So hopefully it serves the industry in the most well-rounded way possible.
It's a big jump. You went from, working for someone, I assume, and now you're the boss, but you also have to, pay the bills and all of that. What made you decide to go ahead and do this?
There were a number of reasons. The big one is what I just said, that when my previous publication, when R&R did away with print last year, that was a difficult transition for me. I felt like the industry needed more than that. And I started to have a hard time asking people to spend their time writing for the publication and, using their time and resources. And so I got more and more uncomfortable as it progressed. So that's why I ended up buying it. But I guess what made me I'm trying to think if I have anything else to add to that. There were some, which I know that we're going to get further into the questions and that this will come up again, but there were some ethical things that just didn't sit right with me sometimes with how things went. And, when you're part of a big media company, or even a magazine that's tied to an association, there are loyalties that you have to pay, there are different rules that you have to live by. And some of those things just didn't always sit great with me. So I'm hoping to walk some different ethical lines in this and not do pay to play and not have that mix. I was uncomfortable with people paying a lot of money to do a podcast with me or whatever that may be. I am happy to talk to people, and if they have something educational or whatever to share, I want to be able to share that. And I kind of believe that if we're educating the industry in a good way, that the revenue and the advertising will follow, because the magazine will be respected and people will realize that by being in there, they will be recognized hopefully as thought leaders. They will they'll get the name recognition that they're looking for. There's, hopefully this will bring a lot of value both to contractors and to the vendors as well.
Yeah, it kind of unties your hands. You're free, a free woman to do as you please now. I mean, that's great. I remember talking to you, back in the days when you were kind of, you're kind of stuck by, you're working for a big company. The people that pay the bills are the advertisers, and it's tough. But now you've got a little flexibility there. What about the old content? I mean, C&R it's been around for many years. We were talking before the show here, and it may have been in the 60s. And there's a lot of old content, great stuff by Marty King and others. What will happen with that?
I have to say that the old content was one of the things that excited me most about C&R, because it has this amazing legacy, and I don't want to change that at all. I want to build on that. There is so much value here in old articles from Marty and other people. So it's a process right now. So John Isaacson is helping me. Thank goodness. I'm very thankful. And Pete, of course, is going to be a massive help in this. But I have the archives back to 2015 as of right now. And we are hoping to get all of them at some point. So, I don't know how much is going to be digital when we do get them, how much is just going to be print and going to need to be digitized, but I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to make those archives available for the industry, because I think that's a huge resource. And there's so much that we could pull from those and reshare, reuse, compare from, what was happening in the 60s to today. It will be a vastly useful resource if we can get our hands on it. And I think that we will. We just haven't quite yet.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about the industry. Are cleaning and restoration companies as hot an item as I gather? I see a lot of people selling their companies.
Yes, I would say so. I had the privilege of speaking with Scott Sevier at the CORE conference a few months ago, and then we did a podcast, and this was we did a webinar, and this is one of the topics that we covered. And I did some interactive stuff via Slido to see kind of what restoration contractors were saying about this and what their experiences were. And, it's all a little bit relative, but in one of the sessions, 90% of the companies in the room had been approached about being bought. Wow. In the next session, I want to say it was around 70%. And then in the webinar, I think it was maybe around 60%. So it was a broad range, but that's still a massive number of contractors that are interested. So I think there are a lot of reasons that it's happening. Part of it is, 65% of restoration owners are baby boomers. So they are, a lot of owners now are at this stage of being ready to phase out. I mean, by 2024, the youngest baby boomers are going to be 60. And today, the oldest this year will be 75. So, and there are a lot of reasons for selling and looking to get out, because one is retirement age. That's the number one reason that restoration contractors are selling right now is retirement age. But there's also burnout, health reasons, tax increases. And some people got burned out by COVID. Some people were like, I've had it and I'm out. There's also the huge
employees, hiring people right now is tough.
Impossible. Yes. I spent the last 4 years just up until I bought C&R also doing recruiting in the restoration industry. And that's an adventure, a big adventure. I don't envy companies at all trying to hire now. It was hard before and it's really, really hard now.
Well, and our new sponsor of Afterthoughts, First On Site, is one of these companies that's pulling groups together, buying up restoration companies across the country. As someone who, you're in touch with all these leaders and the people that run the companies, and then also the people who have to get work done by these companies. What do you think it will do for those who are, the ones that are going to have to deal with the customer experience, the person that gets a flooded basement or the building owner that gets a flooded, office space?
I think it's going to depend. I don't know that I have like the full answer to this, of course, but I think there are a number of factors. Like it's still going to depend on how the companies run themselves, the kind of internal culture that these companies have and how they're training their people to work with customers and treat customers. It starts with internal culture as to how customers are going to get treated. So there are some restoration companies, big and small, that have really good reputations and some that don't have good reputations. A big name doesn't necessarily mean that you're always going to get the best service. So I think that that's part of it. It starts with internal culture. As far as consolidation, I don't know how that's going to affect things, I guess, with carriers and stuff like that. I'm not knowledgeable enough in that area. But there will be obviously fewer options for homeowners and property owners. So hopefully the companies that remain serve them well.
It's an interesting world because, normally you would think, okay, big company buys smaller companies, prices have to go up. But in the restoration world, prices aren't necessarily, they don't necessarily follow that same pattern, I guess. What do you think about the pricing on restoration services over time?
Oh gosh. So are we talking about prices that are in Xactimate? Is that kind of what you mean? Like how that's over the years?
That's part of the reason why it doesn't change that much is because many of these companies, not all, but many of them use that type of pricing system. How do you see this affecting that?
Well, I hope that actually through a lot of efforts by the AGA and then people like Ben Justison teaching companies how to create their own price lists and influence prices and give feedback and stuff like that. The AGA, I believe, has made great progress in working with Xactware and teaching, like solidifying the fact that Xactimate prices are not word of God. That's not all that there is. And I believe that Xactware is paying more attention to the feedback, and there have been some changes in pricing in a positive direction in some cases. So hopefully that will continue, and hopefully, changes that have happened recently, like CoreLogic buying Next Year, hopefully things like that will also continue to encourage like Xactware and Symbility to make sure that their price lists are accurate and that they are being updated and that they are taking feedback from the contractors into consideration. I was talking to the COO of Paul Davis. I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me that within Paul Davis, they train all of their franchises on giving pricing feedback to Exactware, and they track it. The entire Paul Davis system actually tracks if their contractors are giving feedback like they're supposed to. So hopefully, if companies can pick up on that trend and keep that going, then that puts a lot of the power into hopefully the restorer's hands, puts more of the power back into the restorer's hands. If everybody is giving feedback like they're supposed to, and Exactware is listening, or Symbility is listening, whatever that may be, hopefully that's going to affect prices in a positive direction for contractors.
Okay. Cliff, let me turn it over to you, see if you have any follow-ups.
Not to those, but I do have some follow-ups.
Go ahead.
I'm an old guy. I like to hold a book in my hand when I read it. I've collected old issues of industry trade journals. I'm uncomfortable reading a book on a tablet. I just can't do it. It doesn't work. And I'm just wondering if there's any hope for me, to stay current in the industry, because this digital stuff really, I find it difficult. So I'm just wondering if you have any recommendations.
Well, C&R is in print now again, so people can get C&R in print. So there's going to be 6 print issues a year. It's going to be bi-monthly. As we're growing, I'm hoping that there's going to be more digital components like ebooks and stuff like that in the off months. I think that there's like so much good education out there that, there will be ebb and flow there, but print is not dead. It is totally not dead. We still have it. The print magazines are out. And this industry does love print. I don't know if you guys have been watching on social media and seen all the people posting their pictures with magazines and whatever, which is really fun. But I'm also trying to make sure that C&R and this kind of education is getting into the hands of new people coming into the industry. So I have partnerships with like REITs and RTI and Total Contents with Barb Jackson and Anissa Coy's Firehouse Education. I have relationships with organizations, schools, and I shipped them boxes of magazines, and all of their students are going to get a copy of C&R and be encouraged to subscribe as well. So that's a whole new way, hopefully, that education is going to reach new people to the industry if they're technicians, or project managers are going to see them, not just owners. Hopefully this means that the reach will be further in print as well as the whole digital space. The website and digital space kind of is what it is. There's a website and podcasts and columns and an e-newsletter and, all of those things. But the print magazine is really what's going to be the core of C&R.
Glad to hear that.
Yep.
Joe?
All right. Well, historically, the thing that differentiated C&R from other trade journals like R&R and Cleanfax, historically, what differentiated C&R, I should say. I'm not as familiar with C&R as many people are. I think it was an RIA thing, and maybe you can tell us what differentiated that from the type of magazine you worked for prior to buying this.
Okay. So from my vantage point, and I'm curious if other people would agree, I think that they would, C&R has traditionally been somewhat of an elevated magazine with a higher level of education. R&R, I would say, I tried to have the full breadth of content there, but it really did not get into super technical stuff. I loved to have somewhat technical articles while I was there, but also would run into the problem of like, if this doesn't fit, the audience maybe won't understand this. I don't know. Is R&R the best fit? And I know in the past, people wouldn't really turn to R&R for that high level educational stuff. They would turn to the IICRC journal, or they would turn to C&R. So I'm really hoping that C&R is going to continue to have that elevated content. I've had somebody submit the paper that they wrote for getting their CMP. I can't remember now, but one of their high designations within the RIA, and that's pretty high level stuff. So I'm also in the process of creating an editorial advisory committee. I plan to have that in place by the end of the year, but I definitely need experts in the industry in different areas that can vet these articles for me that are way above my head technically, and help with that. So I'm looking forward to putting that together. I have a few people tapped already. I'm kind of taking my time with it to make sure that I choose who I think will be best for the industry and best for the publication. So
I kind of see it as like you're not, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not going to a full, like what Siri does, peer reviewed articles, and it's not, just articles from people who are trying to sell something. It's kind of in between the two. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, that's exactly right. Yes, I'm hoping to have some Restoration 101 stuff, because hopefully there are some new restorers reading this, and then also have more tech, not to the point of being in a journal technical, but high level education stuff as well. Yeah.
And,
From,
go ahead.
I was going to say, from my vantage point, I think one of the things that RIA as an association had, and as the publication had, they always had trust, I think, among the members, and I think within the industry. So I think it was a trusted resource. And I think that the articles that were in there tended not to be an advertorial, but they tended to, provide guidance, provide information, provide, an opinion, provide thought, that sort of thing. So, I mean, from my perspective, that's what I saw. And I think that, if you continue that, you'll do fine.
That is my goal. I know that there's a question coming, but it's a difficult line to walk. I've had a number of conversations with John Downey since this started, because he obviously has walked this line before quite a bit. And I, like you guys understand as well, some vendors in the industry are experts and designed their equipment or whatever, and can be true drying experts or whatever. And then there are others that, they are not necessarily experts, they're salespeople. So my goal is definitely to make it very, very clear what's editorial and what's an ad, and to try to not have a blurry line as much as possible, and make it abundantly clear what has money behind it and what's purely editorial.
I'm curious.
It's wise.
Do you know why RIA? I assume it's financial. It was kind of expensive to keep running a magazine that was basically a member benefit. Is that pretty much what happened with them not, wanting to sell the magazine?
Well, I approached them. I don't think that they had thought of selling it, but yes, I think a lot of it was monetary. The RIA has a lot of focuses right now, like the AGA and other things. And having a staff to run a magazine is an undertaking, and getting content is an undertaking, and all of that. But I think they also saw, I hope, value and trust in me, that I will be able to carry this forward, and I'm still serving the industry as a whole. They still are going to have space in the magazine every single month for an article or their news updates or whatever. So hopefully this is going to expand the RIA reach considerably. My core list is RIA membership, because that's who used to get C&R, but I've grown it pretty substantially beyond that. And hopefully that's just helping the RIA even more expand and bring in new members and get more people involved.
Now, how long ago did this changeover take place? I'm not even sure.
Mid-July.
And you've put out how many print copies now?
Just one. The first one came out like the week before the experience, so early September.
Oh, it was good timing.
It was about, I had about 40 days from date of taking it over to having a print issue done, which was a really narrow window, but did it. I had a goal of having having issues at the experience, and it worked out. So, yeah.
And how has the advertising, the old advertisers from other magazines you've worked with, how have they responded to this?
Very well. Very
Good.
well.
Good. And they like the print idea as well?
Yes, a lot of people have been thrilled to have print back. Yes. Everybody's kind of looking for something. Some people want lead generation. Some people want to know the clicks. Some people want the name and brand recognition that you get in print. I'm finding that a lot of people want a mix of all of it. They don't want just print, but they also don't want just digital. They want a happy medium somewhere in there. So that's what we're trying to get. And yeah, a lot of people are really excited. I've had some people that kind of fell off the radar for a while in the past approach me and are excited and getting involved. And the industry's been very supportive of me so far, and I am extremely thankful for that.
And, I'll bet there are other organizations out there in similar situations to RIA where, they've been printing their own publication for years. It gets, I assume, and maybe you can verify this for me, the most expensive part of printing a magazine is mailing it out. Is that accurate?
Printing is more expensive than mailing.
It is.
Yep, the printing is the most expensive for sure.
Okay.
But I find it pretty massively worthwhile, especially in this industry. I think, maybe there are industries that would do just fine without print. This industry loves print. People have been really excited.
Good. That's good to hear. The other thing, what new features do you plan for the magazine?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, for one, I'm working with Siri to bring in some more, we were talking about that higher level content. And so I'm going to be working with them a little bit to have those higher level educational pieces. So that's part of it. But I have new columnists. I really wanted C&R to be somewhere that, over the time that I've been in restoration, I've met some people that I think are great experts in the industry and deserve a platform and are good writers and have a good voice and a lot of things to share. So I'm trying to bring new people into the fold. There's a lot of the same names throughout all the industry publications. You see a lot of the same names, and there's a good reason behind that. I mean, those people are true experts, but there's also new people that really know their stuff too. So there's going to be a full disclosure column. That's what it's called, with Scott Walden, who is the CEO of VetCorp, which is a franchise for veterans. And he knows his stuff, is very passionate about restoration, knows a lot about program work and TPAs and pricing and running a business and all of that. And he has that interesting angle because he's a veteran and his business model is a little bit different. And so I've always enjoyed his articles when he would write for R&R and his expertise. Then Marcy Richardson, who is the head of HR for Guarantee Restoration Services in Louisiana, she is doing a team talk column that once a month, and it's all HR related. So, her first column, she got hate mail. So I'm considering that successful, right? That means people are reading. Yep. So, her first column was talking about COVID protocols and not anything opinion based, but more like, here are the things that employers need to know as far as COVID goes and the laws and all of that, how to navigate this weird time of vaccines and if someone's sick and tests and all of that. And then the Brandon Reese and Chris Nordyke, they're out of Floodlight Consulting Services, but I met them back when they worked for Summit Restoration, and then they both worked for Belfour for a while, and they are doing a MIT Resto Moments column, and they are also going to have just a trove of information to share, both from like the technical side of running jobs to company culture and things like that. And then the last columnist that's rounding it out is David Princeton, who is, he calls himself a customer advocate. He's really a public adjuster and an independent adjuster, both. But he's doing a Dear David column. So restorers can write in their questions, or maybe they're having problems on a job or whatever, and he's going to answer as kind of like a Dear Abby type thing. He's going to be answering contractor questions about when it comes to working with adjusters and try to help smooth over kind of that playing field as it is. Some of his biggest clients are restoration companies that call him in to help. So he's really passionate about helping people, and he doesn't, I don't know. There are opinions about adjusters.
He doesn't pull his punches, huh?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, the article on COVID, why did she get such, tough feedback, I guess you would say?
You know what? I don't remember actually, because it was a couple of months ago now was the first one.
Yep.
And I don't remember what the email was. And I don't think it was like terrible hate mail, but
right.
But it definitely caught people's attention. It's been one of the most popular articles on the website already, which is kind of funny, but yeah.
Well, It's a very timely topic, actually. And you're dealing with people who go into other people's homes on a regular basis, and they're sometimes going into their most intimate. They're going through their closets and things of that nature. So it's a tough business. I'll tell you what. When we're going to stop and we're going to thank our sponsors at halftime. When we come back, I didn't prep you for this, so I'm going to prep you now. I'm curious what you think the biggest challenges are for the cleaning and restoration industry as after we get through COVID. So we'll be back. We're going to thank our sponsors. We'll be back in 90 seconds with Michelle Blevins. Our marquee sponsor, Instascope. More jobs done faster with the future of IAQ assessment technology. Unlimited samples, instant results, and cloud-based data at instascope.co. Our association sponsors are AIHA, Healthy Workplaces, A Healthier World, AIHA.org, ACGIH, Advancing Careers of Professionals in Environmental Health, Industrial Hygiene, and Safety, interested in defining their science, ACGIH.org. The Cleaning Industry Research Institute, see more deeply through science and research, CIRI science.org. The Indoor Air Quality Association, IAQA.org. The Restoration Industry Association, the granddaddy of the restoration industry, restorationindustry.org. The IICRC, a nonprofit standards development and certifying body for the cleaning and restoration industry, IICRC.org. Healthy Buildings America, Honolulu, Hawaii, January 18 through 2022. HB 2021-America.org. Industry sponsors are AEML Laboratories. Free shipping, great pricing, same-day results with no rush fee, AEMLinc.com. Particles Plus, feature-rich particle counters and air quality instrumentation. Count on us, particlesplus.com. Gray Wolf Sensing Solutions, over 20 years manufacturing accurate, reliable IAQ instrumentation for portable, short-term, and continuous monitoring. GrayWolfSensing.com. TSI Inc., an industry leader in precision instrumentation for monitoring indoor air. Learn how to expand your IAQ investigations. TSI.com. Sunbelt Rentals, availability, reliability, and ease for all your IAQ and restoration needs at sunbeltrentals.com. April Air, healthy home, April, AIRE.com. And Healthy Indoors Magazine, a free online magazine for industry professionals and consumers, healthyindoors.com. All right, we're back with Michelle Blevins. She's the owner and editor, I guess, publisher of C&R Magazine now. It's great to have you back. Before the half, I asked you, what are the big things restoration companies are dealing with today? How do you rank them as problems for the industry?
Oh gosh. Okay, so number one's hiring, no doubt. Hiring is absolutely the number one big thing. COVID and learning how to navigate that is big. I would say, consolidation is probably the other. If I'm going to talk top three, it's hiring is number one. Consolidation is somewhere up there, and yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And COVID, of course, is the one that hopefully will be passing as time goes on. But that hiring thing, I don't know if that's going to change. Is it just paying people more? Or is there more to it than that?
There's more to it than that. It's really difficult to compete with, like a Home Depot or a local car wash that's paying $16+ an hour, and you get to be inside in air conditioning or heat in the winter, and you're not getting dirty, and you're not going in a crawl space, and you're not going in an attic, and you're not getting called out in the middle of the night to suck sewage out of someone's basement. So it's really, I think, continues to come down to the issue of there just aren't that many people in the trades right now. I think that there has been a bigger push in recent years for more of the younger generations to go into the trades, which is a good thing. We went through these years of college being it. And if you don't go to college, you're never going to get a job. And that was wrong. Like, there are really good jobs to be had in the trades and good money to be made. And I think that finally that message is starting to come out again. And there are other opportunities for people to find careers without going to college. And so hopefully there will be an influx in the trades. It's just really difficult. Pay really isn't everything. It's not. I mean, a lot of restoration companies are paying top dollar and trying to get people in, and it's still the hours and the work that needs to be done and all that. Unless you find people that really, really care about other people and have like that servant's heart that you have to be a restorer, it's just not going to work. If somebody's just looking for a job and a paycheck, they don't typically make good restorers, I don't think.
And I can't think of any like automation, there's not a robot that can go in and take these people's place. How are there other ways they're trying to work around the lack of new people?
Well, remote estimating is definitely a growing thing. I mean, I know of some restoration companies that do not even have an estimator on staff anymore. They're using remote estimating thanks to using things like DocuSketch and Matterport, and they just send those images to their estimator and somebody offsite remote, and they do it all for them. So that is definitely a big trend in the industry of getting rid of project managers. It's interesting because a few years ago there was, it used to be pretty common to have like write and run project manager estimators, and then in the recent years that's kind of divided out, and so then there's project managers and estimators in the two different roles, and now it's kind of more that the estimator is just going away and there are project managers. But you're right, there's a lot in this industry that's not going to go automated. Like, yes, you can't have a robot restore a house or whatever. There's technology that's helping, drones can be used for roof inspections and things like that. But other than outsourcing some of the work that you can, like estimating, if that works, and if you have somebody you trust and you know that they're going to write you a good estimate without being on site, that seems difficult, but it's doable and people are having success with it. So,
and it seems like if that there's got to be people who are interested in the science of helping people get through disasters, and obviously you don't want to pull out wet carpet all your life. I mean, there comes a time when, you've got to move on, you've got to use your brain a little bit more. And I would think maybe by letting people know it's not just, sucking out water and cutting out drywall, there's a lot of other things that can be done in that industry.
Yes, I totally agree. I'm working on a committee in the RIA for a fall technical conference that's going to be more for project managers. And one of the things that we are pulling in a speaker on is teaching soft skills. That's actually like one of the most important things about being a restorer, no matter what your position within the company is having those skills to relate to the customer and good customer service.
I got to mention this because I think you're right on there. And there's a lot of people that go and take sociology classes in college and so on. And I don't think they even imagine how helpful that would be in a position like someone who's doing restoration for people. Yep. Just being able to communicate with people and empathize and then help them through these difficult times. Those are really important people. And I don't think anybody in a sociology program anywhere in the United States is looking at restoration as their future. No. But I think that's what we need. We need people like that who are able to go out and help people feel, better about the situation, that they're in good hands, that it's going to be taken care of, and then to get the work done. So I'm hopeful. That kind of leads me to this. You are a successful young female entrepreneur in this area. What would you tell other young people looking for a future in that profession?
Restoration is amazing. I never thought that this is where I would be, of course. I worked in TV news before this, and I have to admit that despite being in news for years before coming into restoration, I covered fires and I covered floods, and I even was at somebody's house that got raised up after a flood. But it never occurred to me what happens after the fire, after the flood. It never occurred to me what happens after the news crews leave and the rest of, the viewers forget about this disaster that happened to somebody. That's when restorers come in. Restorers are really, the first responders are heroes, and restorers can be heroes too, for sure. They're putting lives back together after the disaster. So I think, what? Sorry.
I said, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Well, look at what's going on in New Orleans, in southern Louisiana right now. It's no longer on the news. You don't hear a thing about it. Maybe once in a while you get a blurb about the fact that they can't pick up all the garbage that's left behind. But, once the fire and the flood is over, they're moving on to somewhere else, and someone has to pick up the pieces. And that's what restoration people do every day.
Yeah, I think there are so many rewarding positions that you can have in this industry. You don't have to, there are people who do sales or marketing for restoration companies that are women that are amazing and love their jobs. And then there are amazing project managers that are women. There's the full gamut of positions and opportunities, and the sky's the limit. And if you love serving people, this is a great industry to be in with really good people. You're going to be surrounded by good colleagues nationwide, really. And then it gives you a chance to serve people, which for people who like to serve, that fills your own cup, right? So
yeah. Cliff, let's see if you have a follow-up for him.
Not on that, but I do have some follow-ups on some other issues, Joe. Thanks. I want to just talk about advertising and the role that it plays in the magazines. I mean, I've been around a long time, I've been asked to write for a lot of magazines, and some I did and some I didn't. And the ones I didn't, I had ethical challenges. Because I didn't necessarily want to see my name in print in the same publication where there were disingenuous articles where there was bovine excrementia and so on and so forth. And so it was easier to say no than to say yes. And the thing that I find most amazing is how creative some of these people are in terms of doing it. And the one that concerns me the most is this third-party endorsement, where a manufacturer hires an expert to write an article kind of, saying that I've tested this product and it's like really great and so on and so forth. And that to me was like a new level of disinformation and deception, and it just bothered me. So I just wanted to express my opinion. You can either respond to it or not, but I just wanted to put that out there.
No, I appreciate that, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and I am definitely aware that has happened in the past. And so I I love all the comments on the side. I know that it happens, and I am going to really try my best to not have those weird, unethical things happen. I've definitely learned a lot since I started at R&R in 2015. I've learned a lot since then. And, I want people to tell me if something is like, oh, Michelle, that's not great. Like, I'm open to letters to the editor or responses, or just an email to me like, hey, you messed up, or I don't like this, or what, I have thick skin, and I know that has happened, and I am aware of it, and I know who tends to do that. So, I'm not always going to get it right, but I'm going to try my best.
Well, and I mean, I can understand it in your position, working for another publication. You have boards of directors to answer to, and financial things, and all this stuff comes into it. So I suspect that at least on one occasion, if not more than one occasion, someone was not even asking you, but ordering you or telling you that, you got to do this, whether you like it or not. And I'm sure that maybe that was part of the decision why you decided to, kind of go out on your own and create your own culture and so on and so forth.
I think the restoration industry has actually been a little bit spoiled when it comes to content in magazines, because I'm pretty familiar with a lot of other trade magazines and B2B publications, and most of them are almost completely filled with advertiser articles. Like, one of the people who mentored me through this process is a publisher, not in restoration at all. And their magazines are almost entirely written by advertisers. And there are a lot of other publications that are like that. And so this industry is spoiled in that they're used to having good, high quality education, which is how publications should be, I believe. And so I'm firmly sticking to that. And, I also have in my head, like I have a certain ratio of pages that I won't go over for ads in a magazine because I want there to be a certain ratio. I want it to be educational. I want the balance to be education, not ads. And so,
but some people do come for the ads. They want to know,
no, absolutely.
It is presented as such and not presented as something else. And I will confirm that Michelle did listen to those of us that complained about those issues in the past. And I really appreciate that. I'm happy to see you've moved over. I got a quick question before we go to the roundup. You said in 2015, you started writing in the restoration world. What got you from TV news to writing for Restoration World and publishing a magazine or editor or whatever your position was there?
Well, honestly, the TV station that I worked for, my husband worked there as well, and it was not a healthy place to work at all. It was terrible. We lived in northern Michigan. We were ready to move back to the Detroit area where our families are. We had just started a family and all of that. And my husband had been looking in the Detroit area, and I had been looking, and I saw the posting for R&R come up, and I was like, that sounds interesting. I'll apply. And it worked out. I had no idea what I was getting into. And I am very glad that I took the chance, because my husband and I actually had this pact that like he was going to get a job first and I would just follow and get whatever I could. But I saw this one and was like, oh, I think I'm just going to float a resume and see what happens. So I'm glad it worked out. I missed.
Now you're the owner of your own.
I missed working when I was in TV. I was behind the scenes and I didn't get to interact with the community or anything like I had done at the newspaper before that. And that was what I missed the most. I really missed working with people in the community and all of that.
You've got the perfect background for this, Michelle. Let's go to the roundup. The Roundup is brought to you by April Air, providing healthy humidity, ventilation, and air purity solutions for new and existing homes. April Air, healthy air, healthy home at aprilaire.com. Well, this will be an easy roundup for me. I only have to say one word, but give me just a second. Before I do, I want to mention again that we'll have Afterthoughts, the Afterthoughts forum. You can go to afterthoughts.iaqradio.com and we'll continue the discussion there. My one word to continue the roundup is Pete.
Hey guys, how you doing? Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay there?
You sound great.
All right, good. Well, first of all, I really enjoyed listening to you guys and banter and go back and forth with Michelle. Michelle, appreciate your honesty. So bovine excrementia. So let me tell you the first time I heard that. It was somewhere in the mid 80s when Marty, we used to do these technical seminars under the old NIFR, the fire brand. And Marty used that term in some talk he was given from the podium. And of course, this was before, the digital age. You couldn't Google anything. You couldn't ask Siri. I didn't know what the heck that meant. I said, what's Marty gone crazy? He's talking. It sounded Latin, right? And I couldn't even find it in the dictionary. And anyway, finally, somebody told me what it meant. And I always thought that was great. So that was something. So listen, I made a couple of notes on stuff that you guys are talking about that I want to address. And it's kind of funny listening to some of the points that Michelle brought up, that the roots of some of the stuff that she's doing today existed in the early years, maybe even before she was born. So the first one that caught my attention was that column called Dear David, with the guy who's the public adjuster, deals with a lot of contractors. In the very early years of the columns in the magazine that both Marty and Steven Spivak wrote, but specifically with Marty, the original columns in the 80s started out by members calling in and asking Marty a question. Mm-hmm. And then essentially he would pose that question and then he would answer it. And that went on for several years. So it's interesting now, years later, that we're actually reverting back to that. I kind of like that. One of the other thing, the funny thing is when we're talking about the remote estimating and how much of that stuff's going on, of course, a lot of that is really due to the technology. Mm-hmm. But I think a big part that drives that that's been an issue restores had to deal with for years has to do with pricing, because it's been very difficult to get insurance companies or even property management companies to actually pay for project management and supervision that was legitimate to a job site. They all thought this fell under that kind of O&P, the 20% O&P, which it really didn't. So anything that any way the technology could be used to reduce cost, but not necessarily reduce the quality of project, I could see that happening. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you, that's been going on for years in a different way. So here's the low-tech version of that, Michelle. The first article I ever wrote for the industry was solicited from me by John Downey in the mid-90s when he first launched CleanFacts. And he wanted me to write something. He never told me what. He said, what do you want to write about? So anyway, the title of the first article I ever wrote was called The Lead Technician, a Restoration Technician, is the Heart and Soul of a Restoration Company. And that the part of that philosophy came off of in the remodeling industry thing called lead carpenter, where the lead carpenter on a project basically runs the job. And for many, many years, the lead technicians were very critical and very important to running a job. It wasn't until the latter years that the estimators and project managers became more prominent. And but a lot of the way back in those days, what a lot of good estimators and project managers would do, if they knew that they could train a good lead technician, it was the eyes and ears, and they couldn't get out to every job, they would tell them they'd be able to estimate and bid these jobs without looking at them by having to bring a bunch of Polaroid pictures in. That's the low-tech thing. Bring in a bunch of Polaroid pictures, lay them down on the table, tell me what we got, and then based on that, they actually could write an estimate. So what's going on today is just kind of the advancement of that. It went from a low-tech to the high-tech, but where there's a will, there's a way, and you can still kind of get that stuff done. I think the whole point of you putting an advisory committee together obviously is very, very important. You know, for all the years that Patty ran the magazine, she never really needed or had an advisory panel. And I think the main reason for that is because they had Marty and Steven Spivak on staff, and they were essentially the clearinghouse for a lot of the articles that came into the magazine that needed vetting. And she knew enough people, and it was probably more of an informal kind of way. But I do think is a very critical, important thing, which I think, you know, Michelle is a principle that Michelle's really seems to embrace, is they have to vet these articles when they go in there if you want to differentiate, you know, between it being a disguised advertorial, if you would, and really just giving good technical information to the readership. I think doing a blended, you know, one of the things to keep in mind that would make C&R really a great magazine over the years wasn't just the technical articles. It was kind of the opinion pieces and the pieces that came in from the members on a wide range of restoration topics. There was several years there was a column called Members Forum, which was kind of the members would submit things. It was kind of a hybrid between an op-ed and a letter to the editor. It wasn't either, but it was in a column and it had a disclaimer, and it wasn't censored, if you would. So it allowed the members to get on touchy, you know, kind of controversial issues. In the last 2 or 3 years with Marty, you know, before he retired, and that was, you know, still several years before he passed, a lot of his columns at the end were really, he addressed those kinds of issues. It kind of got away from the technical. And I remember one time thinking, if it wasn't Marty, some of those articles would have been really right on the edge to publish in the magazine, because the associations are always so sensitive with, you know, political implications of what's put out there. But Marty had his pulse, you know, on where the industry is today, years before that, dealing with the TPAs, the pricing issues, you know, a lot of the stuff that we're struggling today, which, you know, is it being addressed by the AGA. So I thought that's interesting. And I think, Michelle, hopefully you'll still have you know, something in the magazine that deals with other issues outside the technical. It seems with the human resources and some of these other columns you're putting together, I think they're probably going to address that. The soft skills things is a really important thing that you brought up. You know, any of the members and people have been around for at least 10, maybe 15 years. You know, REA had a lot of different debates that we did. And we did a series of debates that spanned from 2006 to maybe 2012. They had a lot of little catchy names. But one of the major insurers had participated in one of those debates. And we actually were able to publish the PowerPoint that they put out on addressing what the challenging issues were. Of course, it had all the disclaimers, and I won't mention who they were because they don't always like their name being used. But what I'll tell you is this: they pointed out 11 what they called them were challenges, meaning these are the issues that they saw as a major insurer. And of the 11 points that they pointed out, most of half of them were technically related stuff, which has lended to today with a lot of the software programs and the documentation all. But at least 5 of them, as I can recall, were all based on improper communication. And and that was it. So that was pretty validating at the time to hear that, because I think I think the best project managers, lead technicians, customer service reps on the phone are people that really have those soft skills.
Well said, Pete.
Yeah.
Hey, Pete, I want to just give you an amen on the, not getting paid for estimates and so on. It's not just the restoration world. My son has a little construction company up here. Everybody thinks, hey, he's going to give me a free estimate and write me a scope of work, and then I'm going to shop it around to other contractors in the area. Nothing more frustrating, than dealing with that stuff and not getting paid for probably 5 to 10 hours a week my son puts into that type of thing. So I think it's a lot of industries that face that problem.
Well, no, that's true. And a good friend of Cliff's and mine, some people have been around. He won the 2009 Marty King Award, possibly Phil McLaughlin, the infamous CR number 45. He wrote an article years ago called "There's No Free Lunch." And he was never able to get it published, but it was one of these cult things that distributed. And essentially, he was talking out against the insurance companies that were essentially wanted restorers to give free estimates on the fact that they, we'll give you some more jobs in the future. And of course, it never really worked like that. And that was always a contentious issue. And anyway, but you're right. There really is no free lunch. The other thing, Michelle, the interesting point that you brought up, Michelle, was that you were initially, when you were in your main journalism, when you first started your career before you got into restoration, you were involved after the fire. Well, the old ASCR, and whether this is in the archives and could be something that maybe could be part of the C&R deal that could be leveraged. We did about 3 or 4 videos back in the day that were available to the members, and in some cases available to non-members that for industry education. One of them was actually called "After the Fire," and it was a whole video of what happens after the fire strikes. Another one was called "Water Damage Risk Diagnosis and Repair" in 1990. That was an industry effort that was funded by a lot of the suppliers, and Marty wrote the script. And that was that was back when you used the old VHS videos before we moved to CDs, and then the technology that we have today and YouTube and everything else. So it's funny, all these years later, we're talking about that. The industry's already been through there. It's kind of a cyclical type of thing. I guess the last kind of comment I have that I wanted to kind of close with was, my experience in first meeting Michelle. And, I knew about the C&R transfer through a little birdie that gave me a professional courtesy call, which I appreciated, before it hit the wires. And I was pretty excited when I heard that Michelle was going to take it over. And, some of the issues about dealing with the advertorials and some of the policies of the large, publishers, I don't need to rehash that. Cliff vetted it. Michelle's comment on it. I think that's fine. But, I remember when I guess maybe Michelle, you're only with the industry for maybe 6 months, certainly less than a year. And REA was coming up on its 70th anniversary year. Normally the association celebrates every 10 years. And then of course the 25 to 50 and the 75 silver, golden. And I don't know whether Cliff, I don't know whether we'll be around for the century mark for the 100 one. If we are, they'll probably have to wheel us out of the home. But anyway, so Michelle reached out to me. I didn't really know who she was at the time, but obviously I knew she was the editor of R&R. And she asked me, she wanted to do a piece on the history of the association. Now, no one actually ever asked me that before. And up to that point, to that knowledge, I don't know that that even the association never kind of revisited the history to that. So I had a 90-minute interview with her and gave her all the nuts and bolts, starting back from 1946 up to that 70th year. And then Cliff will remember that Cliff and our executive director at the time, Mark Sevitelli, we kind of edited it, she put some clips in there, comments, and then that article was published. I don't know, maybe a few weeks before the actual 70th issue under C&R. And it was a behind the scenes kind of collaboration between industry media and the association, kind of the best of both worlds. And that's when that famous picture that's been out there that I had sent Michelle, I call the Restoration Goodfellas. I had a picture of Cliff and Major Long and Ron Alfie Alford with all their mustaches and mutton chops and everything from back in the day at a convention. And anyway, it was pretty cool. So that was, Michelle really did a fabulous job on that. And anyway, so here we are 5 years later, Michelle, and anything that I could do from a historical art standpoint to help with the kind of the transition from the old to the new under the CR brand and expand it, the way some of the things you're talking about, certainly be looking forward to doing that with you.
Perfect.
And anyway, so that's kind of it. So with that, I'll pass it back to you guys to go around for final comments.
Well, thank you, Pete. And Cliff, any final thoughts, final questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Michelle. And we'll talk more in the future.
Yeah. Michelle, before we go, any final thoughts, final things you'd like to mention?
No, thank you very much for having me. People who are listening, you can get a free subscription to C&R. It's free. C&Rmagazine.com. You can get a subscription. You can choose digital or print, whichever you prefer. Everybody's a little different. Thank you for having me on. And Pete, the invitation's still open to be on my podcast to talk about history stuff. I know you were going to maybe bring some other people with you. So
Michelle, one other thing, we have this thing called Afterthoughts, and we'd like you to kind of participate in it. And kind of the way that it works is today's subject matter is open for the next week. It closes on the next show. So if you peek in every now and then, you may find we'll post today's comments, and you may find some new comments and questions and things like that. So I think you'll get more information from the audience by checking it out.
All right, I will do that.
Michelle, let me make sure I have it right. It's CANDRmagazine.com.
That's right.
I got it in the chat. Everybody get your subscription ordered now. Thanks so much to this week's guest, Michelle Blevins. Great job, and looking forward to many more discussions with you as time goes on. This should be a real nice change for the industry. Really happy to have you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. I also want to thank my co-host, the Z-Man, Cliff Zlotnick. John, you got to have faith at the controls. Of course, the restoration industry's global watchdog, Pete Consigli. Most importantly, our growing group of loyal listeners and our sponsors. Check out the afterthoughts.iaqradio.com. We'll be back. Oh, by the way, next Friday, this is going to be an interesting show. We've got, let's see here, Chris Howells, who's the senior product manager for ventilation and purification at April Air. So we're going to continue our discussion of mechanical systems and HVAC next week on the next episode of IAQ Radio Plus.
For IAQ Radio, I'm Spike Reel saying thanks for listening.